Haddonfield is an historic town in New Jersey about 8 miles southeast of City Hall in Philadelphia. Kings Highway is its main street, but the downtown also runs northwest along Haddon Avenue into neighboring Westmont and eventually Collingswood. Haddonfield was settled in 1682 and quickly became the hub of Quaker South Jersey. If you're from the Delaware Valley, you've probably seen the outside of a Quaker meeting house before. If you haven't been inside one yourself during some class trip on the Revolutionary War that you probably took in middle school. If you're not from the Delaware Valley, it can be difficult to understand how a religious group that makes up 0.02% of the US population had such a massive presence anywhere. But yeah, they basically dominated New Jersey south of the Raritan River, both culturally and politically. And a lot of their original meeting houses from the 1700s are not only still around, but still very well kept. Quakers didn't evangelize, and back then if you married outside of the faith, you would lose your membership, so their presence became one of natural decline, which then declined even faster after all the Quaker schisms of the 1800s. Still, their values are an underlying part of the culture in and around Philadelphia, and crept their way into most of the founding documents of the U.S. Ben Franklin, Thomas Paine, Benjamin Rush, Richard Stockton, and Joseph Hughes were all steeped in Quaker culture. We're in New Jersey to eat pizza, and we're taking PATCO on our pizza outing, so let's chat about PATCO's history. The PATCO High Speed Line was the first of the Great Society subways. It was named the High Speed Line, shortened to just the Speed Line, because its original operating speed was 75 miles an hour, which was and still is quite fast for metro service. The top speed has since been reduced to 65 miles per hour to save wear and tear on the electric motors, but it's still quick. The original 1951 plan for the PATCO system had 3 branches on the New Jersey side of the river that shared a tunnel to get to Center City. The estimated cost of that system was around $242 million. Fast forward a decade to the 1960s, everything's more expensive, and a new proposal emerges for $94 million. But just a one-line system from Center City to Lindenwold, and incorporating the Bridge Line. The Bridge Line opened in 1936 and ran between Center City, Philadelphia and downtown Camden via the Ben Franklin Bridge. This is now the current PATCO route. The dream for a 3-line system never really died. The River Line light rail opened in 2004, and the dream lives on still as the proposed extension to Glassboro. PATCO uses the Ben Franklin Bridge to cross the river, but otherwise uses subway tunnels in Philadelphia and downtown Camden. As it heads through East Camden, it runs on a combination of embankments and viaducts before dipping into an open cut through downtown Haddonfield. After Haddonfield, Camden County becomes much less urban, so the route runs mostly at grade, going over or under the few local roads it encounters along the rest of the route. Like most other Great Society systems, you pay by distance. The downtown stations are close together, the outer stations are farther apart, and are dominated by park and rides. PATCO is no exception, and large parts of the urban fabric of these historic towns were bulldozed to make way for these park and rides. To be fair, this was an existing rail corridor from Camden to Atlantic City, and in many cases, these were older, light industrial uses that were being demolished because they no longer had freight rail access once construction began on the speed line. That doesn't mean that then, and especially now, parking lots are the highest and best use of these spaces. As the system approaches its 60th birthday, the third iteration of station renovations are in full swing, with the head houses losing their masonry glass for clear windows. But the stations remain as Spartan and utilitarian as ever. When I first started using the system in the late 90s, they still had magnetic strip ticketing, old school turnstiles, and the fare between any 2 stations in New Jersey was 75 cents. PATCO is a subsidiary of the Delaware River Port Authority, which also owns the Betsy Ross, Ben Franklin, Walt Whitman, and Commodore Barry bridges. All toll bridges. That means on PATCO you get 24/7 service, good headways, nice trains, and excellent reliability. I've been on every rapid transit system in North America. This is, hands down, the all-around best system. It's amazing what you can do with a little bit of toll revenue. Bricco is in Westmont, New Jersey, right next to Haddonfield. Technically, this is Haddon Township, and this whole part of Camden County used to be Haddon Township, but Haddonfield broke away in the 1800s, Then during Burrowitis, Collingswood, Oakland, Woodland, Audubon, and Haddon Heights all broke away. What you were left with is this non-contiguous township in 3 different parts: Westmont, West Collingswood, and West Collingswood Heights. Westmont is the main part of town, and it's also what the PATCO station is called. It's a little painful to look out from the elevated platforms and see all of this density a mile or 2 from the station, and then see the stations themselves surrounded by 19th century suburbia. Not saying we should go tearing down 1920s bungalows, just that all of this surface parking needs to go away. There is no excuse, especially amidst declining ridership, to still have empty parking lots next to a station. The last time we went to Bricco,
I didn't like it.
right? It was like kind of before we really started the channel. So why didn't you like it?
I thought the crust was like too charred.
Too much char.
Yeah.
I think that's their brand because it's coal fired. Still.
Well, just because it's their brand doesn't mean it's good. Walmart has a brand.
Well, what I was gonna say was, I am eager to try Bricco again. Now that we've been to a bunch of the other places, and see how it holds up, you know. This is like peak New Jersey here. Like housing style, train overpass, a turkey walking down the side of the road. That was a giant turkey. Hot take on Bricco. Not at all like I remember. The sauce was not nearly as sweet as I remember. Like I think it was much better this time. So it was like, it was still a little bit sweet. It also had that like tangy, like citrusy flavor going on, and it was way more savory this time. It was really well balanced. And I mean, you know, buffalo mozzarella, it's DOP, it's going to be the same everywhere. But the crust this time had way less char, and it was a lot thicker, a lot doughier than I remember. What's even more crazy is we got the Bianco pie, and that crust was like way thinner, kind of like what I remember the margarita pie being last time. I liked the crust better last time, but this time the sauce was definitely better. It's just weird because it wasn't even a year ago that I was there, and the sauce is definitely different. Also, you know, I was just at Nardo in LA like about a month ago, and I was looking at the rankings, and it's crazy that Fabrica in Tampa is higher ranked than Nardo. There's no way. I completely disagree. Also higher ranked than Bricco, and I don't know. That one's close. I still think Bricco is better. I had the margarita this time because that's what I got last time, and I wanted to do like a kind of legit comparison between the two times that I was here. But they have a Bricco pie that's more like the traditional New Jersey style, and it's so funny because when I asked like what was the difference between the Bricco and the margarita, because they both had really similar descriptions. our server didn't have any other way to explain it to me other than it's like every pizza you've ever seen. Meaning like, it's a New York style pizza. So anyway, yeah, I'm psyched to have, gotten to come back here, and we'll definitely be back because I want to try their Bricco pie, like their New York, New Jersey style, whatever. But funny enough, my brother is at Pizzeria Badia right now, and over in Philly. So I'm gonna get on the train. I'm gonna go meet him. We're gonna get some drinks. It is currently 57 degrees and a little bit of a northwest wind, and it's colder than I remember for May. I know, like, a cold front just came through, but still, it's, we're on like May 9th right now. Now it smells like piss and weed. Awesome. This used to be all connected to the concourse, which runs under Locust Street from like 16th all the way over to 12th or 11th. And, you could walk through it to get to the Broad Street subway. But they closed it during COVID so that you can still connect to the subway, but you can only connect, I think, from the 12th Street side, just because basically just the homeless took over the concourse. Man, it's like a goddamn toilet. Oh, Jesus Christ, it is. Yep. That is human and toilet paper. Curtis Institute was founded only a century ago, which is a relatively young institution by Philadelphia standards. It's a music school that trains musicians in classical music and, with a 4% acceptance rate, is one of the most exclusive schools in the world. I think the total enrollment is under 200 students, and those students are fully supported by the school's $250 million endowment. I seem to remember this one tower behind the tree here, like people who live around the park being very upset about the height of this tower and the location. But yeah, this is the locally famous Rittenhouse Square. And I was just telling someone before how like you'll see how the grass will get all torn up because people use it, but it's also a dog toilet. So they will reseed it and fence it off to allow the grass to grow back. And it'll probably be like that for a couple of months, and then they'll reopen that and then they'll fence this off and do the same thing. Yeah, this is a great place to hang out. It's all here. Hotels, restaurants, apartments, shopping. If I remember my Jane Jacobs correctly, she specifically talked about that, about like that's what made Rittenhouse Square great, is that it had all the necessary components. So the people were always here and hanging out in the park like 18 to 24 hours a day, just because there's so much going on and so many people live near here that it can't not be busy. The only drawback is the size. It could be a little bit bigger because, like the density of use here is pretty high. The city management things where it's something so simple, but like so many cities get it wrong all the time. Like, so I don't know if they're doing emergency work, or like they're digging up the street there. I don't know if it was planned or unplanned or whatever, but Walnut Street is closed for a block. And that's like 3 or 4 bus routes and a major kind of westbound road through the city. It goes all the way through Center City and through West Philly. But they just put a cop car there and a road closed sign, and that's it. So all these people are turning off of Broad Street and not figuring out that the road is closed until after they've made the turn, when really the sign should be up ahead.
It is Saturday morning, and it is a much nicer day. It was cloudy and raining and drizzling pretty much all day, and kind of cool too, a little chilly even. But bright sunny day, clear blue skies. I don't know, right now probably about 65 degrees, going up to the mid 70s. Pretty awesome. So I'm walking over to PATCO, to the Lindenwald station right now. About to go meet up in Haddonfield to get some brunch. Oh, check that out. There goes the Atlantic City Rail line on its way to 30th Street Station in Philly right now. They don't run very often. It's like once every hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's kind of a rare sight. This is the end of the line, and it's also something of a local bus terminal. And I think there are also a couple of longer distance routes. One of them might go to Cape May. And because you can see, like, New Jersey Transit runs like the traditional city buses, but then they also run coach routes that are, longer distance bus routes that go like, more than 30 miles out from whatever their origin is. But yeah, this park and ride is massive. And I mean, it's cool that PATCO put in all this solar that apparently goes directly into the line itself. However, you could just as easily put those PV panels on top of buildings in this parking lot.
As I headed back into Haddonfield for brunch, I was surprised by the street closures for a 5K race. It was nice that the street was closed, but it also meant that it was busier than expected, which meant a longer wait for a table than expected. I've been here a few times for takeaway coffee. They have a full-service espresso bar as soon as you walk in. This is only my second time eating at Cafe Lift. And if you're in the neighborhood and it's early enough, go for it. The menu's eclectic, the food is great, and the staff is super friendly and efficient. Haddonfield was early to the Historic Preservation Party, with the Historical Society of Haddonfield being organized back in 1914. In addition to having some 400 preserved buildings and homes in this 2.8 square mile borough, there are also strict architectural standards to the point where it's often difficult to tell which buildings are original, which have been modified, and which have just been built in the last 50 years. Even though I don't live there now, I'm from New Jersey, so when I think of home, I think of places like this. New Jersey is full of old towns like this, so it's hard for me to get my head around some of the impressions of New Jersey that are out there. Living in Orlando is really hot for at least 4 months nonstop, so when people here take a summer vacation, they usually go someplace up north. Whenever I suggest that New Jersey is a great place for a summer visit, people's eyes pop out of their head, like I just suggested they take a summer trip to Sudan. I don't get it. We hopped in a car for the 70-minute drive across the state to visit my grandparents. They moved to this part of New Jersey in 1955 from Flatbush in Brooklyn, and eventually retired to Central Florida in the late 90s. When they retired, my aunt bought their house, the house she grew up in, and she still lives there. Now, being in their late 90s, my grandparents are just too old to be living alone, so 2 years ago they moved back into the house they started their family in 70 years ago. No trip to New Jersey is complete without visiting my grandparents. And no trip to Red Bank is complete without a stop at Strawlo's. I grew up at this place, and a lot of people will correct me and say, "Oh, you mean Lighthouse?" No, dude, it's Strawlo's. It's on the sign. There are only 4 of these places, and each is owned by a different brother. And apparently they don't get along, so they haven't been able to expand the franchise, which is really sad that they're sharing the smoothest Italian ice in the world, just not with the rest of the world. For the traditional experience, if you make it here, you gotta get it in a paper squeeze cup. That's it for this episode of Pizza Legends. I'll see you back here next month.